Evolutionary History of Life, Origin of Earth. Various schools of thought are trying for quite a long time to explore when and how the life originated. There are several theories which offer their own explanation of the possible mechanism of origin of life. The theory of special creation. According to Hindu mythology, the living world was created by God Brahma. According to Christian belief given by Spanish monk Father Suraj, God created this universe in 6 days. Special creation theory believes that the things have not undergone any significant change since their creation. These theories have no scientific basis and they are only acceptable on the basis of faith. Theory of panspermia or cosmozoic. Greek word panspermia literally means seed everywhere. This theory proposed by Richter in the year 1865 and supported by Arrhenius in the year 1908. It proposes that life has reached Earth from other heavenly bodies such as meteorites in the form of resistant spores of living forms known as cosmozoa, and they are spread over cosmos, that is everywhere. On getting favorable condition for life, they developed into organisms. Next theory is the theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. Greek word abiogenesis means a, that is non, and bios, that is life, whereas genesis, that is origin. This means that living organisms were got developed from non-living matter. When Helmont described that mice can emerge from dirty racks, isolated wheat grains and sweaty shirts after a few days. Biogenesis theory. The biogenesis theory claims that all living things arise from living things only and not from non-living matter. This is also known as the law of biogenesis. Francisco Redi in his experiment used 2 portions of meat and kept those in closed and open environmental conditions. In closed environment, there was no generation of maggots or flies. However, in open conditions, he witnessed a generation of maggots or flies. Meat which was not living could not generate flies in isolation, but as and when already existing flies reached the meat, that is in open condition, generation of maggots happened, and he proved that maggots are generated from flies only. This theory mainly disapproved abiogenesis. Later, by Louis Pasteur in the year 1864, in his famous swan neck experiment, he used a special flask which has S-shaped neck like a neck of a swan. Hence, the study was named as swan neck flask or Pasteur flask. He took a mixture of sugar and yeast powder, that is the nutrient broth, and filled the flask with water. Special shape of S was given to the neck of this flask and the contents were boiled heavily and then after were cooled down so that the content remains free from microbes. The contents of the flask remain as such even after many days. But when the neck of the flask was removed, the development of microorganisms was started due to air carrying microorganisms reaching the content of the jar. This proved that air is the carrier of spores of microorganisms. In this way, Pasteur finally put debate to the rest on spontaneous generation and biogenesis theory was proved. Theory of catastrophism. Cuvier and some other biologists stated that the earth undergoes periodical changes by catastrophes such as sudden volcanic eruption or earthquake which destroyed living species from time to time and then created new forms of life again. Modern concepts of origin of life. The hypothesis of A.I. O'Perrin in the year 1923 and J.B. Haldane in 1928 together is known as Oparin-Haldane theory. This is the most widely accepted scientific theory of origin of life. In his book, The Origin of Life on Earth, published in 1936, he stated that origin and evolution of life happened in chemical and biological ways. Chemical origin. The first, that is origin of Earth and its primitive atmosphere. Evidences suggest that the origin of Earth occurs as broken pieces from Sun about 4.6 billion years ago, or another most prevailing view suggests that the Earth was formed from the condensation of a cosmic cloud of dust and gases, which are also called as nebula. The first evidence of life dated to more than 3.5 billion years ago. At the time of origin, Earth was a sphere of hot gases. Gradually cooling is happening and various elements started to solidify. The heavy metals such as iron, nickel and radioactive elements formed the core of the Earth. The lighter elements such as silica, aluminium and magnesium formed the mantle and the outer crust, while the lightest elements such as hydrogen, nitrogen, helium and carbon form the gaseous atmosphere. Gases further combined due to very high temperature, that is 5000 to 6000 degrees Celsius, and formed water, carbides, nitrates, etc. And as the cooling progressed, the formation of organic compounds progressed. To begin with, simple compounds came into existence such as sugar, glycerol, etc. and then complex compounds were formed by these simple compounds due to atmospheric influences. Mountains, rivers, lakes, etc. came into existence as further cooling is happening after several cycles of rains and cloud formation due to heat. Formation of biomolecules. When the Earth becomes considerably cooled, variety of saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons were formed and also reacted with superheated steam to form aldehydes, ketones and acids. Formation of carbohydrate, protein and lipid, etc. also took places from simple organic compound which are essential for life. Formation of nucleic acids and nucleoproteins. Due to condensation reaction taking place at the time of existence of the primitive Earth, purines and pyrimidines, that are nitrogenous bases, is formed from hydrogen cyanide. Phosphate, sugar, purines and pyrimidines link together in various combinations to form different type of nucleotides. These nucleotides produced nucleic acids by polymerization. Nucleic acid and protein molecules reacted with each other and finally giant molecules of nucleoproteins were formed. These nucleoproteins carried self-replication ability, which is a fundamental property of living forms. Biological origin. Various big molecules get aggregated together to form denser colloidal system, which A.I. Oparin has postulated in his research as formation of insoluble coacervate. Coacervates are derived from the Latin word coacervare, meaning to assemble together or cluster. Coacervates contain different types of proteins, nucleic proteins and other organic and inorganic molecules. These coacervate molecules split and reunited again and again to produce nucleic acids. Nucleic acids were capable of replicating them. As these acids were not having any covering membrane and they were present freely, thus Oparin named them as free genes. Biological evolution, formation of eubions. The coacervates act as probions or eubions from which first primitive cell might have come into existence. In the early period, two important types of cells were present, monerans, that is prokaryotes, and protistans, that are eukaryotes. energy source for maintenance of life. The primitive atmosphere of Earth in the earliest stage of biological evolution was devoid of oxygen. The prokaryotes catalyzed the synthesis of simple carbohydrate from inorganic substances of C energy by the process obtained by anaerobic breakdown, because the solar energy could not be trapped in the absence of chlorophyll. This is known as chemoautotrophism, which was the beginning of autotrophism. In due course of time, bacteriochlorophyll was synthesized in prokaryotes from metalloporphyrin, that is magnesium porphyrin of seawater, which could absorb sunlight and cause the fixation of carbon dioxide into carbohydrate molecules. This is known as photosynthetic autotrophism. This type of autotrophism can be seen in certain marine planktonic sulfur bacteria. Later on, bacteriochlorophyll underwent molecular changes and caused the formation of true chlorophyll. This change enabled the prokaryotes to form carbohydrates by utilizing water instead of hydrogen sulfide. Blue-green algae or cyanobacteria are the modern descendants of these early photosynthetic oxygen producers, but later cells developed the enzymatic capacity to use water as the electron donor in photosynthetic reactions, eliminating O2 as waste. So, the atmosphere became progressive richer in oxygen due to the process of photosynthesis. It causes a great revolution in the early history of Earth. The prokaryotes gradually modified and became adapted for the aerobic mode of respiration. This led to the origin of eukaryotic or true nuclear cells. The free oxygen also formed a layer of ozone which started absorbing ultraviolet radiation of sunlight, which helped the organism to migrate on land from water. Biological evolution continued by formation of a self-replicating, self-perpetuating RNA in the primordial soup. The RNA molecule catalyzed the formation of other RNA molecule of same sequence, thus their concentration increases exponentially. In this process, most efficient self-replicators survived and formed new variants of RNA. A new variety of self-replicating RNA molecules were developed with the additional ability to catalyze the condensation of amino acids into peptides. This resulted in evolution of primitive protein synthesizing system. Further, development of DNA molecules with sequences complementary to the self-replicating RNA molecules took over the function of conserving the genetic information. Miller-Urey experiment in support of biochemical origin of life. In the year 1953, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey tested Oparin and Haldane hypothesis. They subjected gaseous mixtures of ammonia, methane, water and hydrogen to electrical sparks in a flask fitted with electrodes for a period of a week or more. Miller experiment resulted in the formation of amino acids and other organic compounds of living system. He suggested that the similar process took place on the primitive earth to produce compounds of living system due to production of electric discharge while lightning. Evolution and its evidences. Evolution can be defined as a slow, gradual and orderly changes in an organism from one form of life to another over a long period of time through variation in genetic material and natural selection. The evidence for evolution has primarily come from four sources. Evidence from paleontology. Paleontology is a branch of science which deals with the study of fossils carrying organisms of the past. A bird called Archaeopteryx was found in southern Germany is a good example in this context. It carried wings like that of a bird, also carried teeth and a long bony tail like dinosaurs. They are reptiles, and skeletal features of both. This discovery verified the assumption that birds had reptilian ancestors. Thus, it believed that all birds would have evolved from Archaeopteryx like ancestors. Therefore, it is called as missing connection link in the chain of evolution. Due to changing conditions of environment on Earth, various organisms existed periodically and later on getting disappeared. The geological time scale refers to the chronological programming of various forms of life existed in the past according to the time and place of origin, evolution and extinction. Evidences from morphology and comparative anatomy. In different creatures, morphological and anatomy related fundamental similarity exist. This is not because of any coincidence, but rather it seems that they have something in common from years together, and this had been hereditary carried through various generations. Homologous organs. They have the common origin and also have the same basic pattern, but they are morphologically different in different animals and perform different functions. The arms of humans, the forelimb of dog, horse, cat, the wings of birds and the flippers of whales and seals all have the same type of bones, that are humerus, radioulna, carpals, metacarpals and phalanges. Muscles, nerve and blood vessels arranged in the same basic pattern and perform different functions. These organs show that organisms have common ancestors. Analogous organs. These organs perform similar functions but different in their basic pattern. For example, wings of insects, birds and bats perform the same function, which is flying, but the basic pattern is totally different from one another. These organs show that evolution of wings of these organisms have different ancestors. Vestigial or rudimentary organs are those which are degenerated and are non-functional. This might have been large and functional in some other animals or ancestors of those which now possess it in rudimentary forms, for example, wings of ostrich, hind limb in snakes, etc. Evidence from embryology. The embryogenic stage for many animals is very similar. For example, fish, frog, lizard, bird, turtle and human embryos are similar in appearance in their early stage of development. It becomes difficult to distinguish them. Recapitulation theory proposed by Ernest Haeckel stated that ontogeny recapitulations phylogeny. It means that an organism during its development briefs its ancestral history. Evidence from biogeography. The study of the geographic distribution of flora and fauna is known as biogeography, which also suggests that all the flora and fauna were present with each other, but at the geological changes took place, they got drifted and were getting settled into different places of the earth. For example, elephants are found in Africa and India, but not in other places with similar climate. Origin of species and organic evolution. Speciation is the evolutionary process by which new biological species arise. New species are developed mainly by isolation and variation. Speciation occurs when some individuals of a population migrated to new habitat due to change in environment condition. Speciation occurs either due to geographical or ecological barrier, that is allopatric speciation, or due to genetic variation, that is sympatric speciation. These populations got adapted to the newly changed environmental conditions. There are mainly 4 theories related to this. Theory of inheritance of acquired characters or Lamarckism. This theory was brought into focus by French biologist Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck in 1809, known as Lamarckism. This was published in his book Philosophique zoologique. The main points of this theory are: environmental influence. As per Lamarck, the environment influences the form of living organisms and play a major role in changing their habits. It brings about the new needs of organisms in order to survive in a changed environment, which are responsible for structural and behavioral modification in the organisms. Use and disuse of organs. Lamarck believed that any particular part of the body which is put into more frequent use has a tendency to develop stronger and better, while any part of the body which is put into less or no use leads to its degeneration. For example, the ancestors of giraffe were short-necked antelopes. For example, the ancestors of giraffe were short-necked antelopes. When their ancestors transferred to an area where there were only trees and no grass, the practice of stretching the neck and forelimbs gradually continued from generation after generation, resulting in increased length of the neck and forelimbs of giraffes as we see them today. Inheritance of acquired characters. All those changes which have been acquired by the organisms during its lifetime due to the influence of the environment is preserved by the generation and is transmitted to the offsprings. Criticism to Lamarck's theory. Weizmann in the year 1904 rejected Lamarck's theory by introducing theory of germplasm. Under his experiment, he removed the tail of mice from about 22 generations. As per him, the changes that occur in germplasm are only transmitted to the progeny, but changes in somatoplasm like non-availability of tail in case of mice are never transmitted to the progeny. Theory of natural selection or Darwinism. Charles Darwin presented this theory in his book Origin of Species by Natural Selection in the year 1859. The major points of this theory are: living organisms have enormous fertility and reproduction can take place at a very faster rate, but the number of survivors remain roughly constant under the given environmental conditions. Struggle for existence among organisms continues, looking to the fact that environment have limited amount of food, habitat and other resources. There remains the intense competition to ensure living among organisms, and it continually keeps check on the number of living organisms. The difference among two generations of organisms is called variation, which are transferred to the offsprings to provide them better survival capacity. The best fit and adaptive organisms can only survive as they carry useful variations in structure and functions. Survival of the fittest takes place naturally, hence this is called natural selection. Useful variations continue from one to another generation, and the next generation again gets some new variations in order to become fittest in the given environmental set. This is called continual selection. Origin of new species takes place as a result of natural selection, environmental changes, variations and struggle of existence, etc. Criticism of Darwin's theory of natural selection. The theory was put to criticism by Richard Owen and Adam Sedgwick. Darwinism does not account for vestigial organs and connecting links. It also did not differentiate between somatic and germinal variations. He could not explain the arrival of the fittest. Neo-Darwinism. The modern version of the Darwinian theory of evolution is known as Neo-Darwinism. According to this, various factors like variation, mutation, natural selection, genetic drift through isolation of species play a crucial role in the formation of new species. As per this theory, the difference found in closely related living beings is called variation, which is found in an organism either due to changes in the environmental conditions, that is non-heritable variation, or change in the genetic constitution, that is heritable variation. Mutated genetic code can be passed on to the next generation and it leads to the permanent variation in the species. Mutation theory. It was proposed by Dutch botanist Hugo de Vries in the year 1902. In this, he stated that abrupt and jerky changes that are called mutations bring about the new species. They may be harmful or useful, and only those mutations are heritable that takes place in germ plasm of organisms. Examples related to this theory are polydactyly in human being, multi-nipple conditions in cattle, etc. Evolution of human being. Paleoanthropology is the scientific study of human evolution. In 1863, T.H. Huxley described human evolution in his book Man's Place in Nature. Later on, Charles Darwin published his view regarding the man ancestry in book Descent of Man. Carl Linnaeus stated that human belong to the superfamily of Hominoidea as per the order primates, which included apes along with man. The fossil of the ancestral human was found in different regions of Africa, Asia and Europe. Large brain cranial cavity, erect posture, binocular or stereoscopic vision, opasable thumb, development of speech are acquired characteristic of human being in the process of evolution, which keep them on the top of the animal kingdom. The broad stages of evolution of human being are Propleopithecus, Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus, Australopithecus, Homo erectus, early Homo sapiens, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon and modern man. Today's man has evolved from this Cro-Magnon man about 10,000 years ago in the region around the Caspian Sea in Central Asia. Further, in the course of evolution, according to Dr. Saprio, the present man is likely to change into man of the future Homo sapiens futurus, features with taller body, tomb-like head, with larger brain and may lack wisdom teeth entirely.